Before you hand in your narrative paper, I want to make sure you know everything you need to have in order to get an A on the paper. So I'm going to just look over the 5 for the benchmarks. This is the highest score you can get. First and foremost, it says you need to have the overall impression is excellent and above and beyond. What this means is that your writing, it really just draws the reader in. It stays focused. The word choice is good. It's really showing. It's not telling. It's vivid. Next, it says that the paragraph thoroughly addresses the specific prompt. For our purposes, that specific prompt is, it all began when, or thus began our longest journey together. So you need to make sure that your paper is starting with one of those two. Also, your story has to have a clear beginning, middle, and end, and it needs to be appropriately organized for the purpose of the paragraph. This is saying paragraph because it's a paragraph benchmark. Really, we're looking at for the purpose of the narrative. Okay, so is everything relevant? Are you starting in the middle of things? Are you doing a flashback? Does it have a conclusion of some sort? And I know that some of you are just giving me a chapter, but even chapters have some form of conclusion. Remember, you have your major conflicts, but you might also have sub-conflicts that come to some sort of conclusion, or maybe you just have that next step into solving the conflict overall. Purposeful use of literary techniques. These are your writing elements, your magic threes, your hyphenated modifiers, the humor, the repetition for effect, all of those things. I'll talk about those again in a little bit. Narrative developed with original ideas or a unique approach. So is the story original? It's not just taking, the 3 little pigs and turning it into the 3 little sheep or something like that. Coherent and unified. It all goes together. It's one cohesive piece. It reads smoothly. It reads clearly. That's what that means. Effectively varied and engaging sentences. So you aren't starting every sentence with the subject. You're not starting every sentence with the. You're not starting every sentence with I. Really vary things up. And then as far as engaging sentences go, this is where the word choice is going to help, the interesting and varied vocabulary. But also starting with a clause, with a phrase or a clause, an introductory phrase or clause, and then going into your main sentence instead of just making all of your sentences simple. And then also virtually error-free. So really, for the most part, it's grammatically correct and the format is correct. So here's really the checklist. You need to make sure that your story has a conflict in it. What's the problem? What is the situation that the characters are having to face? Characterization. You want to make sure that you have really strong characterization of at least one of your characters. It's okay if there's just one main character and that's the one where we're really sensing the emotion and the feelings and the opinions and all of that from. Some of you might have stories where you have multiple characters that are being developed. But also ask yourself with the characterization, is physical description necessary for the story or not? We don't always have to know what our character looks like. Sometimes you can just focus on the thoughts, the emotions, and actions. Elements of writing. Again, this is your magic threes, your literary devices, hyphenated modifier, specific details for effect, expanding a moment, and humor. And I apologize, my arrows are off. This should not be pointed at humor. This should be pointed at specific details for effect. These are your showing, not telling elements. Okay? This is where you're going to really get that showing, not telling, is through these techniques. And then, most importantly, make sure your story is engaging. You want to appeal to emotion. Maybe it's very suspenseful. Maybe it's scary. Maybe it's sad. Maybe it's hysterical. Who knows? But in some way, you want to make it so that your readers just want to read on. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of information of what I'm looking for. Just a couple other reminders. It does need to be double spaced, 12 point Times New Roman font, and 1-inch margins. Okay? All right, happy writing. I can't wait to read them.